The Aegean Sea, a cradle of civilization where myths were born and empires rose and fell. Its depths guard the secrets of millennia, silent witnesses to history's grand parade. But sometimes the sea gives back its secrets. In the spring of 1900, a team of Greek sponge divers, led by Captain Dimitrios Kontos, was sailing home. A violent storm forced them to take shelter near the remote island of Antikythera. When the storm passed, they decided to dive, hoping to salvage their losses. One of them, Elias Stariatos, surfaced moments later, babbling of a horrifying sight, a shipwreck littered with the ghostly bronze and marble statues of men and horses. The captain, thinking the diver was drunk or mad from the pressure, dove down himself. What he found was not a nightmare, but a treasure. It was a Roman-era cargo ship, lost to the waves 2,000 years before. An official, government-sponsored excavation followed the world's first major underwater archaeological expedition. For months, they pulled wonders from the deep: stunning bronze sculptures, intricate glassware, pottery, and coins. And then there was this: a calcified, corroded lump of bronze, mistaken for a rock. It was unceremoniously pulled from the wreckage and sent to the National Archaeological Museum in Athens, along with the other finds. For 2 years, it sat in a box, forgotten. No one could have known that this unassuming relic was more significant than all the statues and treasures combined. Because hidden inside this lump of rock and corroded metal was a device so complex, so sophisticated, it would shatter our understanding of the ancient world. This is the story of the Antikythera Mechanism, a 2,000-year-old computer that should not exist. At the Athens Museum, the artifacts from the Antikythera wreck were a sensation. But the lump of bronze remained an enigma. On May 17, 1902, the archaeologist Valerios Steas was examining the finds. He noticed the rock had split apart, likely due to a change in climate from the seabed to the museum air. As he looked closer, his eyes widened. Peeking through the layers of corrosion, he saw something impossible: a gear wheel, a perfectly formed, triangular-toothed bronze gear. Then he saw more: inscriptions, dials, and a complex assembly of interlocking parts. Steas was stunned. Gears were known in the ancient world, but they were used for simple, heavy-duty tasks, like in windmills or watermills. Nothing like this, a miniature and highly complex system of precision gears, had ever been seen before from antiquity. He hypothesized it was a kind of astronomical clock. His theory was met with ridicule. The consensus at the time was that the technology to create such a complex device was not invented until at least 1,000 years later in the great cathedral clocks of medieval Europe. To suggest that the ancient Greeks, for all their philosophical and architectural genius, could create something like this was deemed preposterous. The object, they argued, must be an intrusive artifact, something that fell onto the wreck centuries later. The controversy was so fierce that Steas eventually fell silent, and the mechanism was once again relegated to a storage room, a puzzle too inconvenient to solve. For decades, the mechanism remained a fringe curiosity, but it was not entirely forgotten. Researchers would periodically attempt to study it, but they were thwarted by its condition. The device was in more than 82 separate, corroded fragments. It was like trying to solve a three-dimensional jigsaw puzzle, where most of the pieces are missing, and the ones you have are glued together in the wrong order. The first major breakthrough came in the 1950s, thanks to a British science historian named Derek de Solla Price. He became obsessed with the mechanism, spending over 2 decades painstakingly studying the fragments. Using crude early forms of X-ray technology, he was able to peer inside the device for the first time. What he found was a symphony of engineering. He identified dozens of gears interconnected in a non-obvious, brilliant way. In 1974, Price published a seminal paper, Gears from the Greeks. He argued that the device was a mechanical computer that calculated the cycles of the cosmos. He correctly identified its primary function, to model the movement of the sun and moon. He even managed to count the teeth on the main gears, discovering the numbers were not random, but were specifically chosen to reflect ancient astronomical knowledge, like the 19-year Metonic cycle and the 223-month Saros cycle for predicting eclipses. He called it an astronomical calculator. The world was beginning to listen. But Price's work was incomplete. The technology of his time had its limits. The X-rays were fuzzy, and many of the inscriptions, the machine's user manual, were completely unreadable, hidden beneath layers of corrosion. Price knew there was more to discover, but he had gone as far as he could. The ultimate secrets of the Antikythera mechanism would have to wait for a new generation and a new technology. The new millennium brought new tools. In 2005, an international collaboration called the Antikythera Mechanism Research Project was formed. It united experts from Greece, the UK, and the United States, equipped with technology Derek Price could only have dreamed of. Their goal? To finally reveal every secret the mechanism held. The team brought in a custom-built 8-ton X-ray machine. This was not a simple medical scanner. It was a microfocus computed tomography scanner, designed to generate incredibly high-resolution, 3-dimensional images of the fragments. For the first time, scientists could digitally dissect the device layer by layer, gear by gear, without ever touching it. The results were breathtaking. They could now see every single gear, even those buried deep within the corroded matrix. They counted the teeth with perfect accuracy. They could read inscriptions that had been invisible for 2,000 years. These texts confirmed the device's purpose, mentioning astronomical periods, planets, and even colors associated with eclipses, like red for a lunar eclipse. Another technology, called polynomial texture mapping, was used on the surface. It works by taking dozens of photographs of an object, each with a light source in a different position. A computer then combines these images, allowing a virtual user to move the light source around and see surface details like faint inscriptions in stunning clarity. The user manual of the Antikythera mechanism was finally being read.
With this wealth of new data, the team was able to build a complete digital model. The full, staggering genius of the device was finally revealed. It wasn't just a simple clock. It was a mechanical model of the entire known universe of the ancient Greeks. On the front face, a single crank set the whole system in motion. As you turned it, a set of pointers would move across a large dial. This dial had 2 concentric scales. The outer ring was a 365-day Egyptian calendar. The inner ring was the zodiac, the 12 constellations the sun passes through during the year. One pointer showed the position of the sun. Another, more complex pointer showed the phase of the moon. And incredibly, it even accounted for the moon's irregular orbit using a brilliant pin and slot mechanism to speed it up and slow it down. An idea that would not reappear in science for another 1,500 years. Pointers for the 5 planets known to the Greeks, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, were also part of the original design. But the true complexity was on the back. 2 large spiral dials dominated the rear panel. The top spiral was a display of the Metonic cycle, a 19-year, 235 lunar month calendar that was crucial for reconciling solar and lunar calendars. The lower spiral was the Saros dial, a 223-month cycle used to predict both solar and lunar eclipses with startling accuracy. It could tell you not just when an eclipse would happen, but potentially what it would look like. And then came a final, unexpected discovery. Within the Saros dial was a smaller dial. The inscriptions revealed its purpose. It was a calendar for the Pan-Hellenic Games. Not just the famous Olympics, but also the games at Corinth, Nemea, and Delphi. This wasn't just a scientific instrument. It was a social and cultural device, connecting the rhythms of the heavens with the rhythms of human life.
The Antikythera Mechanism is a miracle. It condenses the astronomical knowledge of the Babylonians, the mathematics of the Greeks, and a level of engineering prowess that simply does not appear again in the historical record for over 1,000 years. It is a snapshot of a lost technological tradition. So, who made it, and why was this knowledge lost? The coins found on the wreck date it to around 60 BC. The style of the inscriptions and the astronomy point to a possible origin in Rhodes, a center for astronomy and mechanics at the time, perhaps even linked to the great astronomer Hipparchus. It was likely on a ship sailing to Rome, perhaps as a gift for a wealthy Roman, or even for Caesar himself. Its loss in the shipwreck was a profound tragedy. Had it survived, had this tradition of complex mechanical engineering been passed down, the history of science and technology might have been vastly different. But it was lost, and the knowledge died with its makers. For 2 millennia, it lay in silence, waiting. The Antikythera Mechanism is more than a clever clock. It is a testament to the boundless curiosity and intellectual power of the human mind. It reminds us that our ancestors were not primitive, but brilliant minds capable of apprehending the universe in ways we are only just beginning to appreciate. And it leaves us with a tantalizing, humbling question. What other wonders, what other lost histories still lie waiting for us, hidden in the dark, silent depths of the sea?